Life study of Matthew, message 64, Prophecy of the Kingdom. We have seen that the section of the prophecy of the kingdom concerning the church covers two aspects: the aspect of being watchful and ready, and the aspect of being faithful and prudent. Watchfulness and readiness are related to our Christian life. We all need to be watchful and ready for the Lord's coming. However, a proper Christian should take care not only of the aspect of life, but also of the aspect of service. For service, we need faithfulness and prudence. Thus, we need to be faithful toward the Lord and prudent toward our fellow believers. As we have seen in chapter 24, both aspects are covered. In life, we need to be watchful and ready, and in service, we need to be faithful and prudent. Although both of these aspects are covered in chapter 24, they are not covered fully. Thus, in chapter 25, there is the need of a complementary word for each aspect covered in chapter 24. Matthew chapter 25, verse 1 to 30 completes the section in chapter 24 concerning the believers. The parable of the virgins completes the matter of watchfulness and readiness. How to watch and be ready is revealed in the parable of the virgins. Matthew chapter 25, verse 13, the last verse of the parable of the virgins says, "Watch therefore, for you do not know the day nor the hour." This word, very similar to chapter 24, verse 42, indicates that chapter 25, verse 1 to 13, is a completion to chapter 24, verse 40 to 44, concerning watchfulness for rapture. Matthew chapter 24, verse 32 to 44, is a section on watchfulness and readiness. Matthew chapter 25, verse 1 to 13, is also a section on watchfulness and readiness. The completion of the foregoing section. In the same principle, both chapter 24 verse 45 to 51 and chapter 25 verse 14 to 30 are sections on faithfulness and prudence. Matthew chapter 25 verse 30, which speaks of casting the useless slave into outer darkness, is parallel to chapter 24 verse 51. This indicates that chapter 25, verse 14 to 30 is a completion to chapter 24, verse 45 to 51, which concerns faithfulness for the Lord's work. Matthew chapter 24, verse 45 to 51 deals with the slave's unfaithfulness in fulfilling the Lord's commission. Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 to 30 is still needed to deal with the slave's unfaithfulness in using the Lord's talent. Although chapter 24, verse 45 to 51 tells us to be faithful and prudent, it does not show us how to be faithful and prudent. This is revealed in the parable of the talents. The way to be watchful is through the infilling of the Holy Spirit, is by having the extra portion of oil. By ourselves, we can be neither watchful nor ready. The only way to have the extra portion of oil is by the infilling of the Holy Spirit. This is the way for us to be watchful and ready. Likewise, the way to be faithful and prudent in the Lord's service is through the spiritual gifts. Without the spiritual gifts, we do not have the ability to be faithful and prudent. Our faithfulness and prudence depend upon the gifts we have received of the Lord. Therefore, in chapter 25, we have both the infilling of the Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit. The Spirit affords us the infilling for life and also the gifts for service. It all depends upon the Spirit. How can we be watchful? Only by the infilling of the Holy Spirit. And how can we be faithful? Only by the gifts of the Holy Spirit. One indication that the parables in chapter 25 are a completion of chapter 24 verses 32 to 51 is found in the Numbers 2 and 10. Matthew chapter 25 verse 1 says, "Then shall the kingdom of the heavens be likened to 10 virgins. 10 is the major part of 12. Hence, these 10 virgins represent the majority of the believers who have died before the Lord's coming. The 2 men or 2 women in chapter 24, verse 14 40 to 41 represent the remaining believers who will be alive until the Lord's coming. The two men in the field or the two women grinding at the mill represent the living believers. However, when the Lord's parousia comes, the majority of the believers will have died. In chapter 24, we have the rapture of the living believers, but this chapter says nothing about the dead saints. This is covered by the parable of the virgins in chapter 25, verse 1 to 13. The fact that the virgins became drowsy and slept indicates that they died. In the eyes of the Lord, when a saint dies, he goes to sleep. Therefore, the 10 virgins who all fell asleep represent the dead saints. In the Bible, God's people are of the number 12, for this number represents the whole body of God's people. In the Bible, one way the number 12 is composed is of 10 plus 2. 10 denotes the majority of 12, and 2 signifies the remainder. For example, 2 of the 12 apostles asked the Lord to let them sit on his right hand and on his left hand, whereas the other 10 were indignant. In the Old Testament, 10 tribes rebelled against the house of David, whereas only 2 remained faithful. The principle is the same here in chapters 24 and 25. In chapter 24, we have the 2, and in chapter 25, we have the 10. When the 10 and the 2 are put together, we have the whole body of believers. At the time of the Lord's coming, the majority of the believers will have died. Only a small number, the remainder represented by the 2 men in the field or the 2 women grinding, will be alive. Therefore, chapter 25, verse 1 to 13 is the completion of chapter 24, verses 40 to 41. Another indication that chapter 25 is the completion of chapter 24 is found in the fact that one of the men and one of the women were taken and the other men and other women were left. Why was one taken and the other left? The answer is not found in chapter 24, but in chapter 25. The reason one was taken was that he was filled with the Holy Spirit. And the reason the one was left was that he lacked the extra portion of oil. Let us now consider the parable of the virgins, the parable for watchfulness, verse by verse. Parable for watchfulness. 10 virgins. Matthew chapter 25 verse 1 says, Then shall the kingdom of the heavens be likened to 10 virgins, who took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. The word then here means at that time, that is, at the time of the parousia. When the parousia described in chapter 24 is taking place, many things will be happening. Then the kingdom of the heavens will be likened to 10 virgins. Virgins signify believers in the aspect of life. Believers who are the kingdom people are like chaste virgins, bearing the Lord's testimony, the Lamb, in the dark age, and going out of the world to meet the Lord. For this they need not only the indwelling, but also the fullness of the Spirit of God. We Christians, firstly, are virgins. Being a virgin is not a matter of work, service, or activity, but a matter of life. Moreover, we are not only virgins, but chaste, pure virgins. Being a virgin is not a matter of what we do or are able to do. It is absolutely a matter of what we are. Whether we are made of female, we are virgins. Although I am an old man, I conduct myself like a virgin. I would never sell my status as a virgin. Even before the enemy, I am a virgin. Taking their lamps. Verse 1 says that the virgins took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. Lamps signify the spirit of the believers, which contains the Spirit of God as the oil. The believers shine with the light of the Spirit of God from within their spirit. Thus they become the light of the world, like a lamp shining in darkness of this age, to bear the testimony of the Lord for the glorification of God. Thus, as virgins, we do not take weapons for fighting or sports equipment for playing, but lamps for testifying, shining, and enlightening. In our hand is a lamp shining for the Lord's testimony. Going forth. The virgins went forth. This signifies that the believers are going out of the world to meet the coming Christ. The virgins do not linger or settle in any place. Instead, they are going out of the world. In one of his writings, D. M. Benton said that the world was just a pathway to him, and at the end of this pathway, there would be a grave. If the Lord delays his coming back, the world eventually will afford me only a resting place, a tomb in which to lie as I wait for the Lord's coming. We are not settled in this world. We are going out of the world to meet the bridegroom. The bridegroom signifies Christ as the pleasant and attractive person. How good it is that in this parable the Lord likens himself not to a victorious general or great commander in chief, but to a bridegroom, a most pleasant person. Thus we are the virgins going, and he is the bridegroom coming. The 5 foolish ones not taking oil with them. Verse 2 says, and 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were prudent. 5 is composed of 4 plus 1, signifying that man, signified by 4, with God, signified by 1, added to him, bears responsibility. The fact that 5 are foolish and 5 prudent does not indicate that half the believers are foolish and the other half are prudent. It indicates that all believers bear responsibility to be filled with the Spirit of God.